Hey guys, what is the number one life and business skill that you can master that can help you for every hour of every day? Something that has the potential to help you in the morning, help you in the evening, help you in the afternoon, help you every day, at night, every day. What is something that that is something that you have to use every hour of the day? A skill, and that is a skill. Any guess? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about a skill just like that. So I believe communication to be one of the most important skill that any of us can master that has the potential to help us in our business, help us in our personal life, in our relationship life, in our community, in our society, everywhere, basically everywhere. So in this particular video, I'll talk about a bunch of tips that I recently talked to with my team that helped, and I believe it'll help you, and it will help uh, I hopefully some of my team members as well. So that's the idea. So as the years went on and I grew in life and in business, one thing that I realized that communication is way more important than we think. There is so many elements to communication that we don't often think about. We often don't get trained properly or professionally. Some people happen to have a much more peaceful life simply because they have good communication. And not only just that, if you know how important it is, you can teach and train the people around you to improve with their communication that can help your life to be significantly more peaceful. By the way, also, this particular video, I'm hoping to just publish like this without any edits. And this is my effort to hopefully bring in the value and focus more on the value of the words, the thoughts, the learning, and that I have acquired over the years, rather than focusing more on the video editing aspect of things like this. So hopefully you find some of this helpful. So one of the things that we tend to use, I run a completely remote team. So the kind of work that I do, whether it's now in YouTube or previously with service businesses, it's 90% of it is all online. That means we have to do a lot of online communication. So I'll start there and I'll hopefully dig deeper into relationships, personal communication, family communications, and all of that as well. So here's 4 specific tips that you can follow when communicating online. So a lot of times, some people are awkward when you get in front of a camera, or when you are on a Zoom, or when you are talking in a group environment. So I'm going to give you 4 tips that can immediately improve the way you communicate, to the world or on the camera and things like this when you're leading a team, etc. Now, first one is always think about when you're on Zoom. Let's just say you're on Zoom communication. Think about don't think that you are talking in front of just one person. Sometimes it's useful, like if you have a fear of public speaking, then it's good to imagine I'm talking to one person. But once you've gone over that, think about the fact that I'm talking in front of 1 million people. And which is something we do. Like if, for example, this particular video, it could be watched by millions of people. It could be watched by a handful of people or 1 million people. So it has the potential to be viewed by so many people. So it's good to imagine that I'm talking in front of a lot of people. So you take that communication seriously as the first part. When you imagine that one person I'm talking to, or that a group of people I'm talking to, I'm actually talking in front of 1 million people, then you take it seriously. So that's number 1 tip. Imagine you're talking in front of a lot of people. This is counterintuitive because a lot of people say, imagine you're talking in front of nobody. Well, that's good when you have fear, but once you've overcome that fear, you got to imagine that I'm talking in front of a lot of people. Okay. Tip number 1. Tip number 2, add value. So when you're talking, I'll give you a simple example. I had a conversation with an intern this morning in my team, and he was basically saying, I had everything in my morning was good. I basically responded to him saying, well, you haven't said anything. There's no value that's added to me. You just said good. What if you said something along that? So then he adjusted and said, look, I have been not learning in the past, but I've started learning this recently, and that really changed my life. And I'm starting to get a good grasp of my learning, and I'm creating a good routine. That's really helped. Now, all of a sudden, he added value to me and everybody in the team because everybody heard a little testimonial of his growth or progression. And that really helped. So when we're talking, a lot of times we're thinking about what's in my mind. But what's even more helpful is if we can imagine that I want to help, I want to add value. So try to add value when you're communicating with people. So number one, thinking as if you're in front of a million people. And there's number two, add value. We're there to add value. There's a lot of time being wasted. So even in this conversation, I'm trying to add value to your life. Hopefully some of this helps. Hopefully some of this helps you in your communication. All right. Talk in front of a million. Imagine you're talking in front of a million people. Two, add value. Third, tell a story, the best that you can. I'm not necessarily going to say that I'm a best storyteller, but whenever possible, I personally try to tell a story. In the past, there was a time where I used to when we started the business, there's a lot of interns that came in and they would sometimes hunch down and quickly tell I've done the design, things like this. Sometimes we'd have designers who's designed for weeks, but when it comes to telling about what they have done to the client, they would have nothing to share. They simply just say, "Oh, I've just done this design." Well, people would not know what they're talking about. So I would tell them, tell a story. Tell a story of what you did. Hey, I started, these are the parts that I worked on. Initially, we kicked off with this part, then we did that part, etc., etc. And that really helps. So whenever you're telling something, tell it like a story. If it doesn't sound like a story, then adjust it. I got a tip a long time ago in business that if you're writing business emails, always read it aloud. And if you read it aloud, think, is this how I would talk? If it's not how you talk, then change it, adjust it. These days, obviously, ChatGPT can help. Even with that, it's a good idea to read it aloud. Is it really conveying a story? Because people like story. People don't like fact. We like facts being told like a story, right? Facts and data. That's how we like it. Fourth, by the way, I'll have a bonus tip for those of you who are sticking around. Number 4, highlight some details. Very, very important. Sometimes when we're telling a story, we are limited by time. So we don't always have a lot of time to talk about every aspect. So what we need to do is we really need to focus on a small aspect to illustrate the point. Again, I'll use the example of a design. So I remember there was a time when a designer worked with me for a couple of weeks and I told him, okay, can you give an update to the client? And he was not able to. He said, what am I going to say? There was a new person in communication, so he didn't know what to say. So I said, well, let me show you how I would explain this to clients. So I would take the whole thing and I'll explain exactly how we did this button. And I'll tell them, look, you see this shadow right here? This shadow that we applied makes a big difference. See this lighting, see this gradient, see this little rounded corner? Let me turn it off for you and see how it impacts the overall design. So we decided this is what we're going to do. So now all of a sudden, by saying that, instead of focusing on a really large design that took us 2 weeks, we focused on just a button. And we illustrated the simple fact to the client that if we focused on so much details on this button, imagine how much more other details have gone into the work we've done for the rest of the project. So focusing on a small detail really highlights the story. Like you might talk about this, I've cooked this meal. All right. Now that's a general broad statement. But if you were to highlight a special ingredient that was really hard to find and how you found it, or how you found it and then you had to prepare it in a special way, all of a sudden that is a story, right? So when we do this, when we feel like we're talking to millions of people, add value to those people, tell a story and focus on some small details, all of a sudden the communication that we do are much more lively. And this is in the context of a Zoom meeting or when you're talking to clients or team members and things like this. I hope this helped. These are the four points that helps. Now I'm going to give you a bonus point that will help you in every communication that you do. Personal, professional, relationship, everything. And that is be authentic. Very, very important. It's very hard to be authentic in today's world because we are constantly copying. When we start a relationship, there may be 10 tips or tricks that you've looked at on the web or on YouTube or some reels and things that you might try to replicate that in your own personal relationship, business relationship. It's not going to help. Here's my recommendation. Learn that and get your version of that from inside, from within. That's going to help. So we need to be authentic when we communicate. When we are authentic, even if we make mistakes, people tend to love it. Authenticity, even with flaws, is often preferred by our listeners because people love a genuine heart, genuine soul, genuine mind. So it's very, very important. I should probably put it in number one. So those are the 5 tips. Imagine you're talking in front of a million people, add value to everybody you're talking to, tell a story and highlight details. And lastly, be authentic in what you share. Now, so that's in the business context. Let's talk about some other things about communication that I believe will help. This is a general conversation, so this video might be a little longer, but hopefully it still helps. So the thing that I've realized in communication is that for the longest period in my life, I thought communication was all about talking. Being able to share how I feel, being able to justify how I feel, being able to prove how I feel. But what I've realized is being able to prove to somebody that they are wrong doesn't help me win. I'll say that again, just think about it carefully. When you can prove to somebody that they are wrong, it doesn't help you win because you lost that person. Nobody likes to be the person who is defeated, and they don't like the person who defeated them. So if we want to really connect with somebody, we need to listen. We need to listen. And I learned over the years that listening was more powerful and more important than speaking. Perhaps that's why we've got one mouth, 2 ears, like people say. That's why we've been given this. I don't know. We need to listen more than we speak. So the second thing I learned about communication is that listening is a skill. You can learn how to listen. Not everybody knows how to listen. You can learn how to listen. There are thousands of courses, hundreds of books on this subject. How to listen well. If you're going to a sales training, the first thing they're going to teach you is how to listen. Right? Sales is all about listening. People think when you sell, you just talk. Poor salespeople, bad salespeople. All right? Good salespeople, they listen first and they convey to you, I understand, this is what you're saying, and then they go from there. This is what you need, and I'll help you this way. So listening is a profound skill if you can learn. And there's so many ways you can listen. So I'll tell you how I've learned to listen, the summaries that I have about how I listen, how I like to be listened to, things that I've learned about listening. And I'll also talk about, as we progress through this video, I'll talk about some of these ideas, about some of these things that you can use in your personal relationship to grow. So anyhow, talking about listening, there's 3 different ways that I believe we can listen. Listen with our ears, listen with our head, and listen with our heart. Listening with our ears is just a label that I use to illustrate the idea that when it's a soundbite that comes to us, a sound that comes to us, we just hear something. We don't take it in. We don't make decisions. We don't think about it much. It's just a soundbite. So when we're going down the road and there's a car noise, the car honking, or people talking, chit-chatting, or birds chirping, those little sound bites comes to our ears. It's more like a filter or filtering those sounds. We don't take it in. We don't think about it. We don't take it in our heart. We just listen to our ears. Sometimes we do the same thing with people that we should be listening more deeply. We listen. So this is called effective listening, not just listening, effective listening. It's one of the most important part of the communication. By the way, I might repeat myself. So hopefully for those of you who are really taking the time to spend time with this video, they might find it valuable to listen to it over and over again because this helps it sink in. So listening with our ears is just listening with very little care and attention. So we simply just listen. It's a soundbite. It bounces off of our ear. Might not listen. Sometimes when I was young, I used to listen to my mom like this when I was focused. When I used to be focused, sometimes people around me would say things, but I wouldn't take it. If I was asked to come and eat, I probably wouldn't take it in. I'd be too tired. And there was a time I would need to be told about 5, 6, 10 times before I actually got up and ate because I was so focused doing what I was doing. Being focused is a great skill, but listening to this like that to my mom, or my parents, or my family was not a good thing. I had to learn to take people seriously, even when they say things slightly, gently, especially important people, your partner. your boss, your team member. They might have just made a simple request. Would you mind taking care of this? Would you mind looking after this? Take it seriously. We can't just listen with our ears. We really need to think about what was said and take note, take action, etc. Listening is a very, very important skill, important communication skill. Let's also talk about listening crimes a little bit later. So I'll take a note of this, and towards the end, maybe we'll talk about listening crimes. So listening with our ears is not something we should use for our very close people. We should leave this part for things that we don't really care about. All right. Some entertainment, social media banters, that kind of stuff, some news, etc. The second type of listening I call listening with our mind. Listening with our mind, with our brain, with our head, listening with our head. It's a thinking type of listening, logical listening. This is where we take in something like 2 and 2 plus 2. What is it? We think it's 4. Okay. But some complex thinking. We need to solve this problem. We listen, we immediately get into work mode, we solve mode, solution mode. Most guys tend to be more like this. This idea was illustrated in the book. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Men tend to be more solution oriented. And I find it in myself. I'm not a specialist on this subject, but I've experienced this in myself. When I'm given a problem, I try to solve it quickly. So that's a different kind of listening. It's where you listen to solve a problem. Someone come to us. Sometimes if we misplace this type of listening, someone comes to us to share their emotion and we say, I'll solve it this way. Someone comes to you and says, hey, I lost my such and such relate relative or whatever. If you just say, you should probably take some time off or some other kind of solution. Not good. Maybe somebody come with their breakup. You should see some psychologist. Don't give them a solution. They don't need a solution. Something I really had to learn. I was very solution oriented. Sometimes it's a small thing in the house. Maybe your partner comes to you and says, hey, I need you to fix this little hole in the wall. And you say, all right, I'll fix it this evening. Maybe she's not going to be happy about it. Perhaps she wanted to have a chat about this. There is some statistics, some data out there that talks about this idea that women need to spend 50,000 words of sharing every day. Words they need to talk with 50,000 words. Guys, on the other hand, is happy with 10,000. Sometimes we spend all those 10,000 at work. When we come home, we have nothing left to share. Whereas our partner may be at home in some context, like right now in Bangladesh, a lot of women stays home, or maybe they do a kind of job where they don't get to talk as much. They need to spend that 15,000 words. They have to find all sorts of reasons to connect with you with those words. Giving them a solution doesn't help. The best thing you can give them is these type of questions. Tell me more. Is that right? Tell me more. These type of things. Now, I'll tell you about how to have an engaging conversation. Also as part of this video. Okay? So those will progress through this after this 3 type of listening. So anyhow, the point is, when we're listening to people, we need to try to engage our emotion as well time to time, right? It's okay for small solutions where we need a quick solution or it's more analytical. Those are the times when we can listen with our head. We think while we're listening and we're engaging, but that's not the only kind of listening we can do, especially when it comes to personal relationship. We need something more than just solution-oriented head, listening with our head. All right. The third one is what I call listening with our heart. This is a very important type of listening. It's a very profound type of listening. It took me a lot of time to learn this. This is when we listen with empathy. So we talked about listening with our ear, listening with our head, and now let's talk about listening with our heart. So this is what effective listening is. We need to engage all of ourselves, our full attention to listen to what the person is saying. In this type of listening, sometimes the person who is speaking don't even know what they're trying to explain and what are the best words. But because we're listening with our heart, we can feel how they feel. We can think how they think. We're in their shoes, trying to fully understand and grasp how does this person feel. This is the kind of listening we need very much in our relationships. Very, very important. Extremely important. Right? Extremely important. So very important type of listening. Now, obviously, you're not going to be a master of all of this all at once just after listening to this. I would say come back to this video, listen to this part of this segment again, and learn. Practice one thing a day, right? Listen with your ear one day, listen with your heart one day, just listen with your mind one day, things like this. But my recommendation is when you're listening, try to engage all three, your head and a heart, and see which one's more important. Is this more analytical type of listening, or is it more where I need to be present emotionally? Emotional maturity is something that we need to grow. I have come across information where I read or heard that apparently women are much better in emotion. Also experientially, I've seen that. They process emotion much more. They've got more brain space for those type of things, whereas guys don't. We tend to have more solution-oriented mindset. But we can absolutely grow and learn to become an emotional, empathetic listener, where we listen to the actual needs of the person. So sometimes people may not verbalize exactly what the problem is, but because we're listening with our heart, we can still understand what they're trying to say. And rather than going straight to a solution or rushing, we really ask them. And how many times you have been in a conversation where somebody was talking and you actually asked them, tell me more. This is a magic word. Just use this. Tell me more. Can you tell me more? Can you expand on that? Can you elaborate on that? And just watch how much people are going to love this. All of us have so much more to say than we actually get to share. This is why we see so many lonely people around the world, because we don't have enough people who's willing to be an active, caring listener. So listening with your heart means engaging everything that you have, emotionally, empathetically listening to what the person is trying to say, their happiness, their sadness, their every movement, observing their body language, all of it. You observe all of it in that type of listening. It's a special kind of listening with your heart. And I'll encourage, for those of you who are in a personal relationship, try to listen with your heart. Try to understand how your person's feeling. And maybe even, with your parents, with your kids, with your siblings, doesn't matter, close friends. And ask them, did I really understand? So really, it's important. It's important. Ask them. I'll talk about the importance of questioning as well. Questioning is another very, very important communication skill. A lot of us don't ask enough questions. Questions are amazing. If you ask questions in a communication, it means you are thinking. It means you understood, you summarized, right? So those are the things we can do. So when we listen with our heart, we try to be fully present. We don't interrupt. We listen. We summarize. We ask a question, and we allow the person to fully express themselves. And that is listening with our heart. And I'll highly encourage you that have somebody in your life, or one or more people who you are willing to be present for and who you listen to with all your heart. And have somebody in your life who is willing to listen to you with all their heart as well. I'll highly encourage that to you. So anyhow, to learn three types of listening. That is listening with our ear, listening with our head, and listening with our heart. And we notice the most important form of listening is where we engage our heart as well as our head. In other words, we think, but we also feel. We feel how the speaker is feeling. And at that level, sometimes when you're in that level, you don't need to talk much. You can even just sit with the person and you'll understand. Because there's a deep level of communication happening because you're trying to feel that person, right? At that point, you observe their body language, how they feel, how they talk, what's their eye doing, how they're moving, everything. You try to feel, really, truly feel how that person feels. It all comes down to care. How much do we care? When we care, we naturally try to hear or listen that way. But if you don't care, obviously, that doesn't come so naturally. But anyhow, so that's the encouragement there is listen with your heart. Extremely, extremely important. Now that we've learned about listening, let's learn about speaking. It's important. It's the next part, right? This part is going to help you professionally a lot. For those of you who are not so much of a communicator, for those of you who don't know what to say, I said, hi, hello, my name is this, and where I'm from, where are you from, what do you do? If you lose yourself, what am I going to say after this? If you lose yourself, I don't know what to say after this. You have business needs. You have needs that Okay, I took a tiny break. So yeah, so let's say you're in business context. Some of you, a lot of us who are in business, we need to grow, we need to connect, we need to talk to people. Again, a lot of these things that I'm sharing with you are not completely my materials. These are things that I've learned, acquired, or understood over the years by interacting, talking, some cases teaching, some cases learning, some cases courses, etc., etc. So the three types of listening is sort of something that I came to as a conclusion for myself, that this is how I should try and listen. But some of the other things that I'm talking about, these are acquired over the years. I'm standing on top of a body of knowledge that have been exposed to. So hopefully maybe some of these things you know, maybe a lot of these you don't know. I hope some of this helps you regardless, because I've tried to summarize this or distill these thoughts for my clients, for my team. So hopefully this helps you guys. And we obviously going to share some of this with our team members as well. So hopefully overall you find some benefits. All right. So how do we talk? You're in a business context. You said hi, hello, and then you don't have anywhere to go. What do you do? How exactly do you continue this conversation for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour? How do you do that? So hopefully this part will help teach you making an engaging business conversation, but this also helps in personal context, an engaging personal conversation as well when, excuse me, when you want to talk, not just listen. If you're an introvert, this will help you tremendously, right? How do I talk? What do I talk about? Etc. Okay. So buckle up. This is it. So for talking, we always start with a question. All right. Always start with the question. We will talk about questioning towards the end. So we talked about communication. Now we're talking about listening. We're going deeper. Now we're talking about talking. And then we'll talk about questioning as well towards the end. So for conversation, when you're talking to people, start with a question, simple question, right? I will teach you the best questions to ask later, but any question like where are you from, or tell me about, so great question to ask is tell me about your story, tell me about your business, tell me about your passions. Already fantastic questions. Open and tell me about is a great way to start. Tell me about you. Tell me what you're doing right now. Tell me what's motivating you right now. Tell me about YouTube you're doing right now. Tell me about your family, your country, your people, whatever. So tell me about is a great way to start a question, right? So that gives you leadership as well. In Pitch Anything, the book Pitch Anything, Aaron Craft, she talks about this idea that when you're in a conversation and the leader always have the frame of the conversation, the person who's leading a conversation. And the way you lead a conversation is through questions. The person who questions most is the person who is leading the conversation. So you've got to ask questions, very, very important. You've got to ask questions, extremely important. So, all right, so the first thing is when you're in a conversation, start by asking some questions, very important. Tell me about this or whatever. So when people are telling you things, the most important thing, rather than jumping onto saying what you have in your mind, is to really deeply listen. Remember how we talked about listening is the first most important skill in communication? So if you deeply listen, you will have some ammunition, some fuel, something to relate to, something to talk about the thing that the person has said, right? What are you going to say? Let's just say you have absolutely nothing. You don't know what to say about it. They say, oh, I know what, currently I'm passionate about trees and plants and blah, blah. Maybe you're an expert on trees and you say, oh, is that right? You know what? I also do blah, blah. That's what a lot of people do. Or you can say, you know what? I have no idea about plants. Tell me more. All right. So tell me more is a great thing to say. Another word, but instead of doing this, I'm going to give you 4 steps again, 4 things that you can do to progress a conversation. The first one of those is mirroring. You mirror. Let's just say somebody says, you ask them, hey, tell me what you're interested in. And they say, we know right now I'm very interested about plants. And you mirror and you reply that back by saying, you're interested about plants? With a question, you mirror back the last 3 words or 3 important words from what they just said and mirror back. You report, you're interested about plants? With a questioning tone, and they tell you more. All right. Let's just imagine a daughter and a father is having a conversation. And the girl comes in and she tells her father, I met this guy. The dad asks, you met this guy? Yeah, I met this guy. He was interesting and we had this conversation, blah, blah. And the dad says, you had this conversation? Yeah, and I think he was a cool guy. It was nice, I think he sort of, helped me understand about this and this and this. And he helped you understand about this. Every time you're saying back what Jesus said with a questioning tone, you're giving her an opportunity to open up more without asking her to open up more. this is same for a guy or a girl. And like, we feel good when somebody says, does this to me. I love it. You mirror and then she keeps telling you more. Okay. And the dad says, oh, he seems like a nice guy. And the dad says, he seems like a nice guy. Yeah, I was thinking, hey, I'd invite him home. Are you planning to invite him home? Every time you ask that, the daughter opens up more and more. This is just an illustration to explain that sometimes these things like this happen. This is something that you can use. And you can actually use this to mirror a conversation so you get the more information about what the person wants to say, rather than jumping and saying, immediately advising or giving an opinion and things like this. You just mirror and let them express all they want to say to you. Hear you. This helps you understand that person better. Personally, I wish I knew this when I was younger, because I wouldn't have made a lot of mistakes that I've done already. Right? When I actually figured out how important listening was, that's when I started to learn all this stuff, study, research, and I found out these are things that I can learn in a conversation. So mirroring is the first of the 4 things that you can do in a conversation to keep the conversation interesting, engaging, and going. Now, so this is probably available out there on courses and things that you need to sometimes mirror. But here's something that I'm going to tell you that you're not going to find anywhere else. How many times should you mirror in a conversation? Let me, think for a second. How many times? Well, here's the idea. Here's my conclusion. I found that you should mirror at least once, if possible, and as many times as you can about a same topic. In other words, until the person is completely finished, they've completely poured out. Keep mirroring until they have finished saying everything. I feel like today I was very thirsty all day. You feel like you were very thirsty all day? Yeah. I think it's the heat. And the heat was bothering me. And I also worked on A, B, and C. When you have a conversation like this, you see how very quickly people give you more information, exactly the things. And I'll give you some words to get the secrets, the sources, how to get to know information that actually helps you in your business, in your personal life, when you're talking to people. I'll tell you about this in a minute, but that's when it comes to questioning. But anyhow, first thing, when communication, mirror. Mirror at least once if possible, and as many times as you can, until the person has poured out everything on that topic. And you see how easy this is? You don't need any special topics, special information, special knowledge. You don't need to be too smart for this. All you need is the practice of mirroring to get the person that you're talking to fall in love with you. It's so simple, right? I've had situations where I didn't talk about anything, went to see a client, and I was just mirroring. I was, following through these steps and trying to engage in a healthy conversation. And I didn't get to share much. And the person still signed up with us, did some business, simply because I was effectively listening and supporting their journey. So even when you speak, listening is the first and most important thing, right? So anyhow, mirroring is the first step. What's number 2? The second one is called labeling. Labeling is, I think it's Chris Voss. He popularized this idea through some of his courses. He is a hostess negotiator, and I think I may have seen this part from some of his courses or something. The labeling is a way of summarizing what you have just heard. So once the person is finished saying what they have said, and you finished with all your mirroring, the second step in the communication cycle, in the conversation cycle, is labeling. And the key phrase to label is this phrase: it sounds like. Memorize this if you can and use it as many times as you can, excuse me, in your conversation. When we say it sounds like, we're literally saying, I have heard you, I have understood you, and here's what I've understood. Here's my summary. So the dad might say, it sounds like you're interested in this guy. It sounds like you had a great time with this person. It sounds like you are interested in a car. It sounds like you have a problem with your car electricity bill. It sounds like your website is not working well for you. It sounds like you need more customers. It sounds like you need help with fixing this issue with your country. Whatever. It works for any circumstance. Once somebody has said something, you ask them more by saying they're mirroring, and then once you finished, the next step is labeling. Sounds like and an emotion is better. It sounds like you're sad. Sounds like you're depressed. Sounds like you are upset. Sounds like you're excited. Sounds like you're passionate about this. Sounds like you're crazy about this. Sounds like, and a summary of the feelings of that person. And again, it's much, much better if you talk about their feelings rather than trying to sell something. Somebody talks about trees and plants, and environmentally tell them it sounds like you are passionate about environment rather than saying, sounds like you need more plants. Would you buy some of my plants? That's a great idea. So match the emotion. You've got to be authentic and say, it sounds like, follow it by a summary and a label if you can. So labeling, when you label their emotion. Summary, you summarize what they just said. It sounds like you're trying to do this. So from this, I get to see that, you need this and you're feeling this way, whatever. Sounds like and feeling goes really hand in hand. If sounds like, a label of your feeling. It's very important, very important. Just try this for one day, try this. I would say if you really want to serious about communication, try mirroring for an entire day. And then try labeling for an entire day. Do it with your clients, do it with your parents, do it with your partners, see how it helps. Each of these things can have the potential to help you be a better communicator, right? So what are the 4 things? Let's go through the step and talk about number 3 and number 4. Number 1, we talked about mirroring. Number 2, we talked about labeling. Number 3 is where you have to put an input. So far, we just listened. We summarized. We didn't say anything. Number 3 is where you have to put some input. Now, a lot of people say, hey, I don't know what to say. I'm out of words. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Well, I'm going to give you a tip of something that you can use to say something to another person. And this is something Tony Robbins popularized. It's called EQ. EQ. Entertain, empower, educate. But personally, I like this order. Entertain, empower, educate. Don't just educate. Hey, you said this and this, you got this problem, so you should do A, B, and C to solve. No, don't do that. Try to entertain first if you can. Everybody loves to laugh. So if you have something to have a joke about, have a joke about that. The dad might say, I can see what you're doing there. I think you're falling for this guy. Boom. Small, little, but it's an entertaining joke. It's lighthearted, simple, right? Their car, somebody you try to sell a car to, you might make a little joke and say, I see that you're into muscle car. Who are you trying to impress? Something like that. Something simple, something silly, something lighthearted. A joke. Entertain first. This is one of my weakness. It used to be a lot more in the past that I would go straight into education. When I need to say something, I would educate them. I would try to highlight what I know about this, and maybe this will help you. It came from a place of helpfulness, but I realized people don't like unsolicited opinion. Something I had to learn as part of communicating. I had to learn people don't like advice unless they was asked for. So first of all, entertain, have fun, have a good laugh. You both enjoy it. You both enjoy this communication. So when you turn to entertain, remembering I have mirrors, they said everything they want to. I've labeled, I've summarized and told them exactly how they feel and what I understood. Third, my turn to input and I gave them a joke. Fantastic. Keep giving them jokes as long as you can. Have fun. Laugh with each other for as long as you can. If you don't have anything to have fun about, then empower. Empower them if possible. Hey, you know what? In my experience, I did this and this and this. I saw such and such did this and this and this. Whatever. Something that empowers each other in that conversation. Who doesn't like to be empowered? Somehow. I'm a problem. I'm feeling weak. I'm feeling vulnerable. And you had a word or a blessing or a soundbite or whatever that empowered you. How good is that? So empower if you can, right? Empower if you can. So it's important if you can entertain, fantastic. If you can't entertain, empower. Now, what if you can't entertain, you can't empower? Well, now, EQ, 3 E's. So the third E stands for educate. Well, now maybe you can educate them. Maybe you're not a funny kind of a person. Maybe you don't have that vibe. You're not going to gel that way. You don't want to have fun with this person. Maybe you don't want to empower them either. But you probably have something you can educate them about. So choose any one of these 3 things. Empower, entertain, empower, educate. All right? So you can teach them something. Hey, you know how you said that you have this problem with your car? Maybe you can try do this, and this. right? Maybe if you're a father having a conversation with your daughter, you might say something along the line of, you know what? As a guy, my experience with guys is this and this and this. Here's some of the things that you should be careful about. Here's some of the things that you should allow them to entertain in your relationship. This is important. You must consider this. Whatever. So you can do any one of those three things. That's just a simple thing to remember. When it's my turn to contribute, what are the kind of things that I'm going to say? Obviously, you can say anything else. If you are a good communicator, you probably have plenty of things to say, but I'm giving you a framework for those people who are new to communication, want to improve their communication or enhance what you already know, then you can follow this framework. I have already mirrored, I have summarized what they said by labeling, mirrored, labeled. Now I use this EQ to say something back. EQ, right? Very important. Now, if you don't have EQ, say something else that is relevant to the conversation. So that's the third step. Now, fourth step. What is fourth step? If you've done something like this well, then by the way, I'll take a little zigzag here. So obviously, we're not going to use all of this all of the time, but if you knew this is possible in a conversation, if you have this in your arsenal, if you're somebody who's doing some business calls, if you're in a cold call environment, if you are a cold environment where you're introducing your product for the first time, if you're meeting somebody new, if you're networking for the first time, if you're weak in conversation in some way, some of these things will help you. You don't need to use all of them, but you can use some of them. Pick and choose. But if you get good at it, if you have a sequence, if you have a routine, your conversation could be a lot more enjoyable, a lot more fun, a lot more outcome driven, good outcome that you both enjoy, right? So I would suggest, let's talk about the fourth step in the conversation. Mirror, label, EQ. What's number four? Well, number four is when you go away from that conversation and you start a new one. All right? So if you have allowed that person to say everything they want to say, if you've allowed that person to say everything they want to say, if you have labeled and summarized what you understood, and if they had wanted to say more, you allow them to say that. If you have done EQ to entertain them, educate them, empower them about what they said on that particular topic, don't leave that topic. It's very important. Don't leave that topic. Then you come to number four, step number four. This is where you leave the topic and go somewhere else. And this is when you ask question. Very, very important. Question leads to the next conversation. Remember how we start a conversation? We start with a question. Oh, tell me more about this. You finish something. I finished talking about the father and daughter example. They finish talking, and the father might say, "Look, enough about the boy. Tell me how is the university going? Enough about the boy. Tell me about your horse riding is going. Enough about the boy. Tell me how you're going with your mom on this project. Whatever, right? That's just a simple example. Same goes on other business and a business environment. Like you have mirrored, you labeled, you everything. You might just say, so with all that out of the way, now let's talk about next question. Now let's talk about this. Can you please tell about this? Can you please expand on topic number 2, topic number 3, topic number 4? Don't go out of the topic. Very important in the conversation. It's important to learn how to stay in a single topic. Very, very important. So this requires a lot of experience. So you need to have a lot of conversations to be good at conversations and communication. It's important. And when we can prioritize communication like this, well, you have a magical experience with everyone you talk to. I love communication. I love talking to people. I love doing these kind of things in videos as well. It's a one form of communication with a massive amount of people. This is fantastic. So those are the 4 steps. 1, I'll say that again, just so it gets in your head. Number 1, mirror. Number 2, label. Number 3, EQ. Number 4, ask question. I hope this helped. This is a long video. I will continue on a little longer for those of you who are interested to dig deeper. This is Masterclass on communication. By the way, for me, I have been paid many times from clients, CEOs, leaders in the businesses to sit with me and learn this very thing. How do I deal with my sales conversation? How do I deal with my partner? I have had this conversation numerous occasions. I've got recordings of them. Some of them I might share down the track. And I've taught people, this is how I would approach a conversation. This is how I've arrived in these frameworks of communication. Nobody taught me in this way. But I realized the starting point of communication was listening. So we got to learn how to listen. And I gave you 3 tools to listen better. Listen with your head, listen with your ear, listen with your heart, and master listening with your heart. And you will be a prime communicator. Everybody loves communicating with you. Second, you need to talk. When you talk, you need to still listen, master listening first. So when you're talking, let the person say everything they have to say by mirroring. Then let them allow them, help them to understand that you've listened to everything by labeling and summarizing what you have heard. And then entertain them, educate them, empower them, any one of them, all right? As long as all of these steps are relevant. And once you've finished all of this, you've covered every topic around that thing, every interest that person has around that thing. Now you're ready to move on to the next topic, next subject, next interest, next context. By asking a question, you move to the next context. These are the things, right? I hope you learned all of this. Now that you learned all of this, the next thing I'm going to talk about is there's 3 more things I'm talking about. Actually 2 more things. One are listening crimes. This is very important. Something that we do as mistakes that we do all the time when we're listening to other people. You need to get rid of, just like you make good habits of listening, you need to get rid of the bad habits of listening. That way you become a better, more engaging listening person, right? So I'll talk about a few other things after, maybe 3, 4 more topics. I'll just continue this conversation. I'm gonna keep this video as long as possible, as long as there's value. I hope some of you take this home with you. I hope this gives you really good value. So I'll keep talking about different things that I know about communication that I learned that helped me. And hopefully some of this helps you. So this is a masterclass. I hope you find this useful. So the next thing I'm talking about is listening crimes. So when we're listening to people, we make some big mistakes. There are 3 or 4 of these mistakes that we make. The first one is interrupting. We interrupt. Be a very good listener. Some people has this as a habit. We don't have the patience to listen to people without interrupting them. We are like a kid in our head with this idea, this topic, this thinking, this question, this thing that I'm unhappy about that they're saying, maybe our partner, maybe our boss, maybe our client, that we are in a hurry to say what we have to say. That is so immature. And we need to learn to not to interrupt. So do not interrupt when somebody is talking. So important. Just don't interrupt. Listen without interrupting. Make this a mantra. Never, ever interrupt when somebody is talking. If you need to go, tell them I got to go and go. Don't interrupt. If you need to say something, tell them. Ask them to stop. Tell them I have to interrupt. No choices, and then do it. But don't interrupt halfway through the sentence. People are interrupted. That person can never say what they're feeling. And unless you mirror, you will never, ever go to the bottom of what they feel. This is particularly relevant for guys. Women like to share their feelings a lot more, right? This is not from me. This is something that I came across recently on the web. And there was a specialist and she was saying that sometimes, she said, wait for 30 seconds and you will hear amazing things from your partner. Like, your male partner. That they might have deeper things. You'll never, ever get to the bottom of his heart unless you allow them that space to express. You need to mirror. Is that how you feel? Tell me more. Magic word. I taught you guys some magic words today. One of them is tell me more. Is that right? Tell me more. Is that right? Magic word. Is that right? Tell me more. Tell me more. Magic word. It sounds like, it feels like. Magic word. Magic word. Master these words. Use as many times as you can. When you're in a conversation, say as many times as you can. It sounds like you feel this way. It sounds like this. Sounds like that. Right? Very important. Anyway, first listening crime is interruption. Do not interrupt. Just let the person finish everything. This solves half the problem. In fact, Marie Forleo, in one of her videos, she talked about this simple idea that when you listen, don't interrupt. When the person has stopped, pause for 3 seconds in your head. Now, I would suggest pause for 10 seconds with my partner. Sometimes I'm waiting and counting in my head, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and I'm at 10 or 20. And then she's like, more information. I'm like, well, I didn't think she was going to say more on this, but she does. She's not as much of a communicator as I am. She talks a lot less. So, excuse me. He talks a lot less. So I need to give her the space so she can express. Just try this. Count in your head, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, whatever, or whatever you want to count, but few seconds after that person has finished. especially for those of you who are like extremely extroverted, or I'm one of those extreme extroverts, guys. And I would jump on this next idea, like Gary Vee, he would interrupt in his interview. He continues to interrupt. I learned not to do that now. But in the past, I used to have that problem. I would interrupt and I'll talk about my ideas. What you say doesn't matter. No, don't do that. Let them express, think about what they're saying. And if they start talking again in that few seconds, let them talk. Let them talk. Mirror again, mirror again, mirror again. Let them talk. Let them talk. Do not interrupt. One of the greatest skills of communication. Do not interrupt. Mirror, but don't interrupt. And you'll just hear things that you've never imagined was there in the heart or the mind of that person that you're talking to. It could be a quiet, be a partner. It's just amazing when you do not interrupt and let them talk. You hear all sorts of incredible things. It's powerful. It's just incredible. It's just powerful. Okay, so that's the next thing. Do not interrupt. Sorry, that's the first thing about listening crime. What's the second listening crime? Listening crime number 2, make it about yourself. A lot of times, somebody comes to you and tells you, last week we went to this amusement park. And before they finish, you take that idea and say, we went to this park as well. Boom. Hang on, nobody wanted to know. I was just talking. Or maybe, hey, you know what? I didn't go to climb this week. Or maybe, I'm very happy with my workout this week. It was such a good workout. And my brother, I'm talking to him, I just say, I did a great workout as well. I did 50 sets of X, Y, Z. Nobody wants to hear about that time. Let me finish, for goodness sake. Let me finish, dude. That's the idea. Now, by the way, this is no reflection on my brother. He's not like that, actually. He's a much better listener than I am. That's good. I'm just using this as an example. So, listen without interruption, number 1. Second listening crime is making it about ourselves. Very, very bad. Don't make it about yourself. In fact, try to come out of a conversation without talking about yourself at all. Dale Carnegie, in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, fantastic book, one of the best communication books, said, do not show off with your communication. Don't just talk about you. Rather, be curious about that person. Go to a conversation and try this. I'm going to give you a challenge. Try to have a conversation with somebody with just have nothing about you. Just ask them about them. When they finish, talk about something about them again. Them. Just see the depth that you create with that person. Don't make it about yourself. Listening crime number 2, we make it about ourselves. You don't need to make it about yourself. When somebody tells you something, you don't need to make it about yourself. Listen to them exactly how they feel, and listen with your heart. Listen with mirroring. Label what they said. Entertain them. Ask them questions, but don't make it about yourself and see how they feel. Do not interrupt. Let them finish everything and mirror. This is listening crime. Don't do that listening crime. Don't make it about yourself. It's really powerful. So that's something that's going to help you, right? Don't interrupt. Second, don't make it about yourself. Third is giving advice, all right? Sometimes before even somebody finishes something, we give them an advice. There's a fantastic course on LinkedIn Learning. Go learn that whole course. I mean, this is a masterclass, so I'm giving you references to different courses that actually help me understand these topics better. So there's nothing to hide. I want you to be a better communicator so that when you and I talk in person, we can have a better communication. So I don't really mind giving credits where it's due. And there was this example they used. They said, like, you're having a two-person having a conversation, and one person says, hey, I went to this amusement park yesterday, and the other person says, oh, where did you get the ticket from? You get the ticket from this side or that? Like, don't do that. It's terrible. Oh, you should have gotten the ticket here. It's cheaper. I mean, who cares if it's cheaper? You just poured water in my joy. I was sharing something and you gave me advice. I didn't want your advice right now. So hold back from advice. This is why I'm careful in saying in the EQ, if you're introducing subjects, try not to give advice. This is something it took me time to learn. In the context where I grew up, one of the things I found is people, if they thought something was deemed helpful, they would tell you that. Rather than giving the independence, like, hey, you should drink water. You should drink so many water, because it's like they're not giving advice, but it's like telling you what I know so that you get the benefit of it as well. But in a more mature context, it's not that helpful. Giving people advice, maybe they don't need it. Maybe they already know it. Maybe they don't need to save money. Maybe they don't need good health or want good health advice right now. So we don't need to tell them that, I'm vegan for whatever, or I eat meat, whatever. Don't need it. Somebody's talking about food, let them enjoy talking about food. You don't need to give them advice. Just let them speak. So yeah, those are the things. Do not interrupt. Listening crime number 1. Don't make it about yourself. Listening crime number 2. Don't give them advice. Listening crime number 3. There was another one I forgot. They're not off the top of my head. By the way, I have this note right here. That's about it. Like 3 or 4 bullet points. That's it. I don't really have any notes. I'm just talking from my head. These are things that I've talked about many, many times, groups and things like that. So 1 or 2 points I might not pick up, but I'll try to put them at the bottom of the video if I think of it in time. So anyhow, so that's the idea, guys. So you need to avoid the listening crimes. You need to listen with your heart. And then when you're talking, when you're communicating, follow the 4-step speaking rules to let people speak as much as they want and guide and lead a conversation, just like a master dancer in a dance, like in a I don't know, South American dance. Master dance leader, right? Like a conductor. Just you orchestrate that conversation in a very nice, beautiful way. When you have a conversation in a good way, like this is an important mindset to have. I always said conversation is like a dance. Go in with the mindset that I'm going to have a dance with somebody. You don't go to a dance thinking, oh, I'm going to get this business deal out of this dance. Generally speaking, people dance. People who like to dance, they just go have fun doing the dance itself, right? You don't go there thinking, oh, after this dance, I'm going to marry this person or whatever, or I'm going to have business with this person. No. The conversation itself is the enjoyment in itself. It's self-contained. It's fun. It's enjoyable when you have meaningful, deep, caring, connecting conversation. That in itself is fully self-contained. And if you get to do business with that person in the future, amazing. If you get to be in a relationship with that person, amazing. But if you don't, the conversation itself is the gift. It's all completely self-contained. Now, with that mindset, we become more kind and less selfish. We don't go in a conversation thinking, what am I going to get out of this? No. Can I sell to this person? No. Just enjoy the moment of the conversation. Have fun. Ask, mirror. You get a little peek into the heart of somebody. That is amazing. You get a little peek in the mind of a person. They might be a scientist. They might be a business person. They might be a mother. They might be somebody who has nothing but tolerated extreme pain in their life, whatever it may be. If you get to learn to take a peek in people's heart, that is just amazing. That's just deep, that's meaningful, that's fun, that's enjoyable. So enjoy your communication with these things without having a pre-agenda to manipulate or get a gain or benefits in some other way. So conversation is amazing. It's just incredible when you have conversation like that with people. So I hope some of these tips empowers you, changes you, improves your helps your life, your conversation, your relationship, everything. Even if you take one of these tips and apply in your relationship, I'm sure you will get significant benefit in your life. Significant benefit, how you communicate and so forth. So we're hitting the bad on hour mark, so I will be wrapping up soon. But I want to give you another important piece in communication. This is about questions. This is about questions. So questions to me are answers of life. Rather than the answers, if you can find the right question, that changes absolutely everything. So I'm going to talk to you about how I find the right questions, what I believe to be the best questions to ask. And this might be surprising to you. Is there best questions to ask? I think there are. In conversation, there are certain questions that are better than the others. I'll teach you those questions today. The questions that gives you secrets, questions that gives you the source, the question that gets the closest to people's heart, the closest to people's mind, closest to people's secret that you might need to know, right? And I'm not talking about secret in a malicious way. Rather, it's a way to help somebody articulate their own thought and get to the right destination in the conversation by using questions as an important tool. That's it. Like, nothing malicious here. So that's the idea. So what are some of the questions that we ask? So there are a hierarchy in my mind of questions. What kind of questions do we ask? You're in a conversation, somebody's talking about their paddock, their farming equipment or farming. What are the questions you can ask? And I'm going to give you a real example for those of you here as a bonus towards the end. I'm going to give you a bonus. I'm going to take a note here. I'm going to give you a real example of for those who are salespeople, how to get to revenue data, how to incorporate and get to a revenue data questions or profit margin questions in a sales type environment. All right. All right. So let's talk about questions. What are the best questions to ask? So there are different hierarchies of questions, and I believe the lowest form of hierarchy of questions are the how questions. How do I do this? Simple questions. If you're in a new business, if you're a novice, if you're completely brand new in a business environment, job environment, you might ask, how do I do this? How do I do that? Blah, blah. So how questions are questions that you generally don't need to ask. If you're a specialist, you don't need the how question. You've dealt with it years ago. You know the hows. In fact, people who are seniors, people who are really good with their job, they don't ask the how question to people. They ask it to ChatGPT or Google or something like that. You don't need to ask how questions to anybody. You figure it out yourself. Most how questions for me, I figure out for myself. But in the lowest level of questions. So when you are starting a business, starting a family, starting a relationship, try to figure out the how question for yourself. Use, how do I do this? How did you do this? Etc. Right. The next level of questions. A lot of people say that, you might ask how and what. They are similar sort of questions. The next level of questions are why and what. So you can write it down, like why and what. It's the next level of question. Like a lot of people say start with why. Simon Sinek, great. Start with why is important. You need to have your own why. Why is only important when you're asking it to yourself. But asking the question why to other people is a really bad idea. Bad idea. Why did you do it? What do you think when somebody asks you, why did you do it? You get defensive, like this person doesn't believe my idea? What? So don't ask the why. Instead of asking why questions, the middle layer of questions. If you ever have to ask a why question, replace it with what? So, for example, why did you decide to start a business, hat business? Instead of saying why did you do this, say what made you decide to start a hat business? Something like that. Frame the why questions with what. So don't ask the why questions very much. Ask the why question for yourselves. Why should I ask the hat business? Why? What are my reasons? Something like that. Anyhow, question layer, bottom layer. How? Next layer up, what and how. So sorry, what and why. The highest layer of questions. That's the next level. Are you ready? Next layer of questions are the layer of questions that reveals secret, that gets you to the sources. All right. And I call them the where questions. Where? There's two questions. Where and who. Instead of asking me, Bappy, tell me about this. How do I do this? How do I do this? What do you do when it happens? Why do you do this? Instead of asking all of that, if you ask me, where did you learn about this? You go straight to the source. You don't need me. You have fired me, right? So where is the biggest question. You need, instead of asking people, how do I find this? How do I source this material? How do I do this? Just ask, where can I go to find this material? Right? Instead of asking your gym trainer, how do I do this? Why do you do this? Ask them, ask them, where did you learn about this? And you can learn to be just like them. Right? That's the why question. But with the example of the gym trainer, you're not always going to be able to learn just like a gym trainer because it took him years to learn that. So the second highest level question is who? Who? Just ask the who questions. Who taught you to do this? Who are your team members? Who is your partner? Who took you there? Who introduced you to this idea? Who helped you mentor on this subject? Who? Amazing. Where and who? These two questions gets you to the secret. This gets you to the source, gets you there fast. Does it make sense? So instead of asking, how should I do this? Well, I'm too busy to answer your how questions. Go ask that to Google. Come to me, ask me, Bappy, where did you learn this from? I learned it from this book. Okay, go read that book, you're done. Who taught you this? Tony Robbins gave me this idea. Okay, go listen to Tony Robbins' course. Search your YouTube playlist. Go listen to that playlist. You don't need me. You know? Which YouTube channel? Where? And where can be in person, where can be digital. Where did you go? It could be in person, it could be digital. Who taught you? It could be in person, it could be digital. These are two things. Ask these questions, and that'll make your conversation very, very engaging and interesting. All right? Like, give you a couple of examples that we've been using all along this conversation. Let's talk about the idea of the plans. Somebody says, oh, I love plans, blah, blah. Oh, where did you get that passion from? Who introduced you to this idea? Boom, this person will tell you more, more, more. And another character in the conversation. Now the conversation is engaging, more interesting. And you see how interesting and powerful this is to have conversation like this. It doesn't mean you need to have a lot of knowledge to have conversations like this. You can actually build up your knowledge when you know how to communicate just by using communication as a tool for growth. So when you're having a communication with somebody, you can actually guide people through this whole experience and you can have a really engaging, really powerful conversation, right? So I have a bonus thing for you. So towards the end, like I said, I will teach you how to get to revenue data information that you will need when you be selling something to somebody. But before that, let's give you a couple of examples of what I have just said and what it looks like in a real scenario, real environment. Let's put it all together. How does this conversation look like when we actually have this conversation in real life? Okay. So let's say I'm having a conversation with, let's say a dad and a daughter is having the conversation. Hey, Dad, how you going? I'm good. Let's say her name is Chloe. How you going, Chloe? Great. And then Chloe might say, I just met this guy in the school. Oh, you met this guy in the school? Yeah, I met this guy at the school today, and he was talking about this and this and this, and that was very interesting. I thought he was a cool guy. You think he was a cool guy? Yeah, you know what? He seems to be interested in books and things like this. Yeah, Dad. I thought of you when he was talking about this. Blah blah. So the conversation continues on. At some point, Chloe finishes, and Dad says, "It sounds like you are keen about this guy, right? Am I getting this right?" And she smiles, which is really a little cheeky smile to Dad. Yeah, Dad, I was thinking I have him come visit and introduce him to you one day. Okay, cool. They have that conversation. They continue on. Dad had a little joke, and I says, "Okay, that sounds great. Like, look, absolutely. Have a chat with Mom, and I bring him over." That's just a simple example, right? Bring him over someday. By the way, now that out of the way, you know how we spoke about that insurance company? Did you have a chance to call them? Boom. That was an entire conversation. And everything that I taught you, this happened in that little conversation. What about a business context? Business context could be the same. Let's just say a guy is talking to another person in a plant store, and somebody is walking past and you're selling plants. But I'm using the plants because I can see my plants right in front of me. So that's just in my mind. So let's just say a salesperson talking to a person in his shop. Somebody's browsing through the plants, in his nursery, and this is how the conversation goes. Hey, how's it going? Hey, great. I like these plants you guys have. This seems very interesting. And the salesperson says something along the line of, yeah, these are something that we just brought new. You are you a big fan of this type of color? Well, actually, and the guy says, actually, I'm not more fan of the color, but I'm actually looking at more of the indoor plants. So you're looking at indoor plants? Yeah, I'm looking at indoor plants because, with all the pollution here in Dhaka, I think I can do with a few more plants inside just to be a bit more fresh house and things like this. Oh, okay, so you're in a closed space. It sounds like you're in a closed space in your house. Not so much of a closed space, but I just don't like the pollution to be in. I like to use plants to improve the quality of air, etc., etc. And the continued conversation goes on. And the guy, remember, and he might make an educated, he might make a little joke and say, "Sounds like you find sounds like you try to create an environment like space in your house," something like that. They both laugh a little bit, and then the salesperson says something along the line of, Tell me what you're looking for specifically. Perhaps I can help you a little more on this because I actually have a knowledge of X, Y, and Z." Something like that, right? I can educate you. That's the request, and then they say, and maybe they have a transaction, maybe they don't, but the whole conversation is enjoyable because the person who's selling the plant enjoys getting to know this person. Otherwise, his day is going to be boring, right? If he gets to sell the thing, great. If they didn't get to sell the thing, they've made a great connection. They will sell the thing one day, perhaps. If not, that's okay too. That's the idea. That's how you have a conversation. You've seen how we engage everything. When the daughter says all of this, Dad mirrors. She says more. All right. Dad labels it, summarizes it by saying, "It sounds like you are into this guy." And then what happens next is, he makes a little joke. And then he wraps up and moves on to the next conversation. Same happens to the plant conversation. They mirror, they label, right? They mirror, they label, they have a little bit of fun, EQ, and they move on to the next conversation. Things like this. So when you can do this, this is powerful. This is amazing. Your relationship will enhance. Your business life will enhance. In every way, you can use all of these communication tips in your life, in your business. This can incredibly enhance what you're capable of, what you're going to be capable of doing. And if nothing else, if you just improve your listening skill, This can completely, dramatically change your quality of life with everyone that you come close to. Because listening is something that we'll be taking with to the deathbed with ourselves. Because we will be always listening. If we are somebody who don't know how to listen closely, deeply, then we will not be able to build relationships. So it's important to master listening skills. Now, these are not the only communication skills. Of course, there's so many more, but this is a fantastic foundation for those of you who want to be a really good communicator, whether it's in sales or relationship. If you master how to avoid all the listening crimes, if you master how to become a deep listener who listens with their heart and their mind, if you master how to communicate by mirroring, allowing people to speak everything, by summarizing, by not interrupting, by labeling, by thinking, all of this sort of stuff, by asking fantastic questions. Very important, you need to learn how to think as well. Then you will be a master communicator. Just practicing even what I said in this little part, you'll become a master communicator in every aspect of your life, whether it be a team, your business, your family, relationship, wherever. Now, there are so many other things that you can learn to enhance your communication. Obviously, you can increase your knowledge. You can increase your practice by being in good circles, good people, having people around you who are good communicators. You can improve your body language, the way you present yourself physically and mentally. All of these plays parts. You can also improve the kind of words that you choose. You can emulate people that you love to listen to. And those things help your communication as well. And there are so much more. You can increase your patience. You can increase your tolerance level. You can learn how to not take things personally. There's so many more things, but the basics, the fundamentals that I gave you here, this is a masterclass. And if you can use some of these things, your business, your professional life, business life will absolutely dramatically change. I promise. With all that out of the way, let me give you a little tip about, for those of you who are in sales or marketing, and sometimes you need to sell to your client and you need to have a communication of the money. Like, how do I go from having a conversation to, do they have the budget to buy from me? How do I do it? Now, this is very simple, really, for most people who are in sales or have done marketing at some point in life. For those of you who are completely new, let me guide you through a process. So when you are having a conversation, let's just say hypothetically, you are a digital agency trying to sell a digital service like marketing to one of your clients. This is a real life example. And then you come at a point where clients have said that, hey, I have this need, and you are trying to identify how much are the client willing to invest. This can be an awkward conversation if you're not used to having these conversations. If I was doing this, I would have this conversation something along this line. I will look at the outcome, I will identify the cost and the benefit, all with the money framework, and I will give them a figure of what they should invest. So conversation might look something like this. So client comes to me and says, I need to do this. We don't have enough clients. We need more sales, more marketing. So we are considering marketing to get this happen. I might say something along the line of, okay, that's cool. So what sort of market is out there? So at the moment you're making, let's say hypothetically, they make $5 million in business and they want to introduce another $2 million in the business over the next 12 months. Okay, so you want to get $2 million more, and we're trying to use marketing to get that. My question is, so do you want to get to 7 million? So basically I would say, okay, so get $2 million. What are we willing to fork out? What are we willing to invest or spend to get $2 million into the business? What do you think is a reasonable amount that you're prepared to invest? Maybe it's $100,000, maybe it's 150K over the course of 12 months. Maybe they have that money, maybe they don't have that money. A lot of times we want to introduce $2 million in the business, but we may not have the fund necessary to get there. So that case, oftentimes businesses would say we would have the fund if we have that business. It's a chicken and egg problem. So we say, all right, well, what sort of funds do we have? And we might come to a point where they say, oh, we have about 80K that we can invest in marketing at the moment. Or they might say something along the line of, we are currently spending about $50,000 in marketing with an intern or whatever, right? And then you can say, all right, well, with that, I would suggest that we can look at a few different options. We can look at an engagement where I will work with my team, or me and one of my team members, and it'll cost you 60K over the course of 12 months. And we will do XYZ service, or we'll be available for half a day to do all the marketing related activities. And it'll cost you 60K. Or it might be something along the line of, all right, we're thinking maybe another option would be to engage my team full-time for $75,000 over the course of 1 year. Something like that. And we will be available full-time every single day. And you'll have consultancy from me, and you will have one of my team members, or two of my team members helping me with you, or the creatives and the marketing operations, something like that. That's just a simple example. So if you want to know what somebody what their budget is, you might be uncomfortable asking, what's your budget? You know, people think sometimes, some people think it's greedy to ask what's your budget. And it's actually not. In most cases, a good buyer would just say, I don't want to spend more than X amount on this house, car, purchase, service, whatever. But in many cases, if you want to avoid that awkward conversation, then you can simply ask, okay, what outcome would you like to achieve? I'd like to have a house near the beach in this way. All right. And then I can say, all right, that type of house will cost $5 million. I would like to get a car that does this, this, and this. All right. For that type of car, we should be looking at this, this, and this, or this, and this model. And that probably cost about between this and this range in the market. How's that sound to you? All right. So, or maybe it's a business service. I need a website done, I have a software done, and you might pay for that type of software. If you want to achieve that over 6 months, it's going to cost $200,000, something like that. And then the client is more likely to say, 200,000 is a bit more for us until we can get some fundraising. So we actually have a budget of 80K on the business right now. Can we do a minimal viable product within this time frame? So at that point, you're well and truly into the business. It's not about, I want to know how much you have so I can charge you more. But it's all about, I want to help you achieve your goal. What do you have available to get there? And I can tell you what I have that I can bring to get there faster. Something like that. So hopefully that helped, whether you're a marketer, whether you're a designer, whether you're in some kind of business profession or in your personal relationship. I hope you find these communication techniques, communication lessons helpful. I hope it enriches your life, your business. And I'd love to hear from you, your feedback about what you thought. And this whole YouTube journey is new for me as well. So feel free to give me some feedback in the comments. Subscribe if any of these helped. I'm going to share a lot more of these type of content. And some of my content moving forward probably will be not so edited because I just want to give the knowledge out there if you ever get the time, because editing takes a lot of time and I might not always have the time. And what we might do is we just put this content out there raw for you to help get benefits. And hopefully you can learn and hope some of these are useful to you. Take care, guys. Bye for now.